Lesson 4.8. Use the quadratic formula and the discriminant. Essential questions for the lesson. How do we use the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations? And what is the discriminant and how do we use it? Looking at the chart here, we've talked about several methods of solving quadratics. Factoring was the first method, but we also found that not every quadratic is factorable, so we should have a second method. The second method we talked about was square roots. The problem with square roots method is that you can only use it when there is no middle bx term. Completing the square is another method that we did not discuss in this class. The quadratic formula is one that we are going to talk about today. The benefits of using the quadratic formula are that it can be used any time that you have a quadratic. The quadratic formula is this. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And in this case, just the same as when we talked about the definition of what a quadratic truly is, we cannot have a equaling 0. If a is 0, there are two things that would happen. One, it wouldn't be a quadratic anymore, so we wouldn't need the quadratic formula to solve it. But two, you can see a is in the denominator of our quadratic formula, which also would pose a problem. Looking down through these, you can see in order to factor it, we had to have it in standard form set equal to 0. When we talked about square roots, though, we isolated the x squared so we could square root both sides. In the quadratic formula, when we use this, again, we want to set it equal to 0 so that we know what a, b, and c are. Therefore, we can plug those values into our formula and solve. Another important thing to remember is that this square root covers b squared minus 4ac. All of that goes under the square root. And also, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. That entire statement is the numerator all over the denominator of 2a.